You are in the Warriors Huddle with me, Bram, and with me, per usual, my master of all things video and sound, Maxime.
How's it going?
Maxime, the JK era is done, my friend. I feel like we have been counting down the days, running down this runway specifically for what feels like, I don't know, something short of 30 years. It just feels like it's been going on for fucking ever. So it is finally done. A trade has been called in. The Warriors gave up Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield, brought back Kristaps Porziņģis. Let's start here. Your first reaction. You heard the news whenever it was, a couple nights back. We're recording this on a Friday. Did you pump your fist? Did you put your head down? I mean, how did it hit you?
Kind of like putting my palm to my forehead and whispering Jesus Christ. Like nothing particularly surprising. Kuminga made his trade demand very clear. I think it would have been pretty rough to continue the season with him, but also probably the best option for the Warriors. It's like at least Porzingis is not 35. But like he's still a quote unquote injury risk. We'll talk about that because it's not exactly an injury. But yeah,
I think you can take out the quote unquote injury risk. I don't think there's not a whole lot of fucking questions there about whether or not he's an injury risk.
Sure. I mean, more the type of injury that he's dealing with is a bit complicated. But yes, yeah, for sure, yes. It's not. It is what it is. Here we are.
I should hedge. So I got a text from friend of the podcast, Ben Cruz, and I was going to look it up and I didn't. So I'm going to paraphrase it. It said something along the lines of, "I hate everything." Like that was the first fucking text I got before I even saw the trade, And then he sends me the link to the trade. I like Ben a lot, and immediately it was like a social uphill. I wanted to agree with him, and so before I even saw the trade, before I even knew who was involved, I was already thinking like, "Oh, I hate this because Ben fucking hated it," Now that it has been announced and now I understand it, I don't hate it any less. I definitely fucking hate it. And I'll put it this. I don't know if you've ever held out for something that you knew really wasn't possible, but you held on to the maybe. I rewind the clock. I am applying to graduate schools, and one of the law schools I applied to was Harvard. Maxime, I wasn't going to get into fucking Harvard. I don't think they were even going to open my application. I did fine in school, but not like Harvard fine. That shit was never going to happen. But there was like a 4-week period of time of maybe fucking I hit the right person whenever it comes. And then I got the rejection, and it wasn't a total surprise, but you still watched the dream die in real time. That was the similar reaction I had on this. If I'm being totally honest, did I think that the Warriors were screaming towards another title, or that we were perfectly situated to give Steph the help he needed to bring back a 5th ring? Probably not, probably not. Like I get that I loved how it's gone. I'm proud of the dynasty as it stood. And if they don't win another one, I'd be okay with that. But was I holding on to this possibility, this miracle trade? Maybe, and let me be more specific. It's after Jimmy went down. There was a period of time there where we're like, okay, this feels right. Jimmy goes down. And then had we all kind of admitted to ourselves, okay, probably not. We're probably not going to see another one. Sure. The only possibility was there's this miracle trade might happen. Maybe fucking Antetokounmpo's coming or whatever it is. And so that's what withered and died when I found out about the Kristaps Porziņģis trade. Is that this impossible thing that I knew wasn't a real chance of going down finally proved to be impossible. And so, yeah, a little bit of a gut punch for sure.
Woof. Yeah, I mean, we're not just talking about the end of the JK era in some ways. We're also talking about really the final nail in the coffin of the dynasty, right? I mean, I think short of a miracle, and look, I'm always a glass half full guy, right? Yep. So we could talk about how maybe the Warriors sit Steph for the rest of the season, tank, get a pretty decent pick, trade that for some star in the offseason or whatever, and there's one more title coming in 2027, but it really does sort of feel like, okay, well, if MDJ couldn't pull it off right now, why would he be able to this summer? And then you put on top of that, all of just the slew of rumors that were coming out that feel more and more like Shams was just trying to get some extra money by drumming up some interest in a Giannis trade that was never actually going to happen. It sort of feels like there's actually not much movement in the space, and it made it very clear in retrospect just how shitty of an offer we had on the table. Our best offer was a bag of chips and some first round picks that, who may or may not convey to be something valuable. So it just doesn't really leave me in a place of being excited about the present nor excited about the future.
Yeah, I'm trying not to say out loud, this is probably the final nail in the dynasty. But I can tell you that when I'm having conversations with people, they tend to be cautiously, I was going to say cautiously optimistic. That's the wrong way to put it. They tend to be almost like a eulogy. When I talk to people now, they're like, oh, well, I never thought we were going to win 4. And the conversation isn't even like, well, do you think we'll win another one? It's more, it's more like understanding what this might indicate. But I tell you what, let's dive straight in. So only one segment ahead of us. It's the glass half full. Normally look back, recent Warriors hoop. Talk about something you like, something you don't. Let's make it more specific, Maxime. Let's make it specific first to JK's career as a Warrior, and then we'll open it up to the trade. Things we like or don't about that. Things you liked about JK's career. Looking back, what's the high point? What's the peak of the Kuminga experience in Golden State for you? And I'll go first to give you a little time to think here. It's got to be 2022 when they won the title. One of 2 times, right? I remember I think it was the Western Conference Final. They beat Dallas. They beat them 4-1. And the game that they lost, the Warriors were down like 20 and they put in the kids. And it was JK and it was Poole, and they almost brought them all the way back. And then we finish it out and the Warriors won a title. And there's a moment there where that 2 timelines thing not only felt possible, it felt like it was fucking happening. Like, yeah, we're here, And so that's probably the high point for me. The other one that might be a little bit more easier to remember, the first 10 games this season, where it looked like, oh shit, he fits. He's rebounding. He's playing D. And like, we can do this. We actually do have some youth and athleticism. So those are my 2 high points.
I was having a nice time reminiscing on the 2022 season with you, and then you brought that up, and that just reminded me how shitty it all went from there. And like, wow, he really couldn't figure out how to make it fit. I guess we'll get to the glass half not full in a second. For me, I mean, I agree with you, right? It's the flashes where he had the offense more or less to himself, as in, right, Steph or Draymond weren't really a part of the picture, and you could sort of see what a vision of the future with JK helming something might look like. A super athletic wing, they can drive to the hoop and get past anybody. The promise, the conversation that we were having when you talked about the peak, I was reminded of, pardon the pun, but Chris and Peak, and talking about, look, at the 7th pick, I'm sorry, for some, like, there's no higher upside than Jonathan Kuminga in this draft if it goes extremely well. Here are the reasons to get excited about him. And as we know, KP still would prefer to see Jonathan Kuminga in a place where he could flourish, which was not going to be in Golden State, because this is the free-flowing Steph Curry offensive system. But you could see a vision of his future that was very, very exciting, and especially when the Warriors didn't have somebody to speak of that did that kind of thing. It's very tantalizing. And then the flip side of that is those first 10 games, because immediately after that, he's benched and he gets pulled out of the starting lineup, and then is eventually not even playing at all for the Warriors. And that's a testament to, like, yeah, it would be nice in theory to have a piece that can do that. But in practice, you need to be able to read and react at whatever position you're in, right? You need to be able to provide a screen for Steph, read what he's doing off ball, pass it to somebody to do something other than just sort of pound the rock and drive to the hoop. And for whatever reason, that just isn't something that he was capable of doing. And that drove Steve Kerr crazy, and that drove all of us crazy. And so, here we are. I think the peak was really the day he was drafted. And the potential that he had. And then as he started getting on the court, you saw that it wasn't real.
Well, those periodic flashes of athleticism too. We've had a lot of things to celebrate here in Golden State. Athleticism isn't really one of them, And so those times when he would dunk on the way up, it was like the diamond in the ashtray of the Warriors' athletic experience. Like you'd occasionally be like, whoa, where the fuck did that come from? So, upsides there. Flipping over to downsides, not a shortage like this season when he may or may not have been faking an injury. Not my favorite time. Although I think the thing that is the lowest for me, and add a little bit of context. So like right now, Warriors, they're not in the best place. And I've talked about on this show, like maybe they should tank, and they're not going to, fine. But I have looked at the standings just to get a sense of like, well, what would it take to get a top 10 pick? And a lot of things would have to go perfectly wrong. How do you phrase it? A lot of things they'd have to lose an insane amount of games between now and the end of the season to get into the top 10. Getting a top 10 pick, put differently, is a really difficult thing. The Warriors are probably not going to land one this year, and it's going to be a little while before we see one. He was a fucking top 10 pick. We had a 7 pick on the bench consistently, which leads to the thing that I took the hardest, the worst moment of the Kuminga experience for me, is every time Kerr looked down on the bench, saw the number 7 pick staring back, the supposed, future of the franchise, the second of the 2 timelines, and said, "You know what? Not you, lacrosse guy, come in here." Every single time that fucking happened is unbelievably goddamn bad. It's an unacceptable deal, and is the perfect detail to illustrate just how shitty this got, man. Pat Spencer got way more minutes than Kuminga did in a season where we were going to find out just how much Kuminga could actually help. So yeah, the absolute low point.
Yeah, and I want to check in with you on this, and I think I know what your answer to the question is going to be, but is that you blaming Kerr in this situation?
It is. We've tried to pin one person to blame. I don't know. It's a Venn diagram. A lot of things had to go wrong to reach that exact moment where all the experience that he had, Kerr decided, nope, I would prefer Spencer. So is Kerr partially to blame there? Absolutely. But is Kuminga also? Yes. Is Myers for having drafted him? Yeah. It's a clusterfuck.
Right.
Like a lot of
and I guess that's right. Yeah. So it was an unfair leading question because you would have had to read my mind to understand where I was going with that. But you eventually did get to the point that I feel like is important here, right? Like, so long as Steph Curry is on this team, you have to create a system, an environment that speaks to his strengths. And what makes Steph Curry valuable is not just that he's the greatest shooter of all time. It's also that he has this like magic ability to move off ball, to get into positions, and you need players around him that can unlock that. And I think the audacity to have a belief in a 2 timelines plan didn't materialize the way that Joe Lacob wanted, because I don't think that he really understood that 2 timelines doesn't mean just getting the best piece available. It means getting complementary players, right? Like a Tyrese Halliburton would have fit better into the system than Jonathan Kuminga when he was available in the James Wiseman draft, just for example, right? And so when you see Kerr looking down the bench, staring at the 7th draft pick and saying, fuck it, I'm going to go for Pat Spencer instead. It speaks to the fact that it's not just Steph Curry, it's also 7-time champion Steve Kerr, right? 3 with the Bulls, 4 with the Warriors. That just like, this dude knows ball. This dude knows how to play championship, knows how to get Steph Curry championships. And so to me, the biggest sort of sadness in this JK era is, look, and I was excited about Kuminga when he was drafted, sure, but like, I'm not in the front office, right? I'm just some dude talking about basketball on a podcast. Like, we should have trusted the people that run the basketball ops within this organization to say, no, this is who we need to surround Steph Curry and Steve Kerr. And that just fell short. And I think Jonathan Kuminga was the embodiment of hubris that has led to a very sad end for this era.
I was never on a debate team. I'm aware that they happen. I know there's like mock court and people, have fights. My understanding on debate teams, what you need is a question where whatever side you're given, you can make an argument for. Whose fault is this? Is the perfect motherfucking debate question. Like if I was given it's Kerr's fault, can I articulate that? Of course I could. We had 0 athleticism. We needed someone who could get to the fucking rim. We were the slowest team in the league, and we had a kid who could jump out of the fucking gym. Could he fit him into his system? No. Can I make an argument that maybe he should have shifted the system and found 8 to 15 minutes a night at least this entire season to showcase his talents? Fuck yes. Maybe more than that, but that's true. Pick anybody. Can I blame Kuminga? Yes, I can. He's playing on a team with multiple championships under a coach with 7 titles. Would it have been worth listening? Absolutely. Can I blame the front office? Of course I can. The coach told them, don't fucking take him. But you don't get a clusterfuck of this level unless a lot of people have allowed it to get there. That's exactly what happened. and so here we are. It is what it is, but it's no longer our problem. Now it's Atlanta's, which leads to the switch to glass half full for the trade. All right, so the Warriors bring back, as we've mentioned, Kristaps Porziņģis. Be optimistic. Upsides. What's the upside of this trade? Why don't you take us first?
2024 Boston Celtics, Kristaps Porziņģis was a big part of that title. When he is healthy and available on the court, I mean, he is the absolute epitome of who we want. I mean, this is a legitimate capital B big who is capable of protecting the rim, capable of rebounding, also capable of playing in a 5-out system, right? Like 36% from three is very decent for a 5. Allows Draymond to play at the 4, which as he's getting older is important so he doesn't have to body with bigs underneath the hoop. It can definitely be the 1-5 pick and roll with Steph Curry and allow all of that off-ball movement, right? Like unlocks the team on both ends of the floor. I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about Kristaps Porziņģis when he is available and healthy on the floor.
I will work up to that point because I agree with you. Upside number 1. It's over, man. We don't have JK on the fucking team anymore. It's over.
Shit,
you know what I mean? Like the only way this could have gotten worse is if the podcast today was, well, Kuminga's still here. Like, oh, hooray. We don't have a So if nothing else, they closed the book on this. So upside, another one. They kept their draft capital. We didn't give up any first round pick. And so theoretically we enter into an offseason this year where they still have all 4 draft picks to cough up for someone like Giannis. I mean, I was the person last week saying there's no way fucking Milwaukee trades him before the deadline. It doesn't make any sense. They're going to wait to see who has what pick. And so we're still theoretically in that sweepstakes, although ironically smashing those 2 points against each other, we might be in a better place if we had JK still to trade as opposed to Kristaps Porziņģis, but fine. We kept on to the capital. And then lead into what you said. When healthy, if all we could see, the only stats available were his career stats, not just Boston, career throughout since he came in the league. This is the exact dude who the fucking Warriors need. It's a stretch 5 through his lifetime as an NBA player. He's averaged 19.6 points per game, 46% from the field, 36 from 3, 7.8 rebounds and 1.8 blocks. This is the floor spacing big man the Warriors have missed since the inception of this fucking season. There's a reason why they called him the unicorn in New York, but also there's a reason why nobody calls him that shit anymore because he doesn't fucking play. The last time he played 65 games or more, so it's an 82 game season. The last time he played 65 games or more was in 2016, his sophomore year. 2016. Here are his last 5 seasons: 42 games, 57 games, 65 games, 17 games, and 34 games. And this year, the Hawks have played 53 so far. He's played 17 of them. 17. You mentioned before you weren't sure if he was injury prone because you were talking about the current condition that was diagnosed. And so for those who may not have been paying attention to Kristaps in Boston, he did 2 seasons ago, championship season for Boston. He's unbelievable, unfucking stoppable. The season after, when we're all expecting Boston to race back towards a second title, and before Tatum got hurt, he disappears entirely. He's not out there in any way. And here is the New York Times article explaining what happened. Kristaps Porziņģis wasn't his usual self during the Boston Celtics playoff run last spring. After dominating on both ends through 42 regular season games, his energy suddenly disappeared in the postseason by a mystery illness. By the second round, in which the Celtics were eliminated by the New York Knicks, Porziņģis couldn't even run for long stints. He was a completely different player from the one who averaged 20 points, 7 rebounds, and nearly 2 blocks per game and helping Boston to an NBA title. Porziņģis was eventually diagnosed with postural or static tachycardia syndrome, commonly referred to as POTS, an autonomic condition that can drastically increase a patient's heart rate when standing up. Quote, "It hit me like a truck," Porziņģis told The Athletic's Fred Katz. "The breathing wasn't good. I did everything I could potentially to feel as good as I could, but my engine wasn't running the way I wanted." So bonus, kind of an interesting thing there for Porziņģis. So injury prone dude. And then the thing that bothers me the most about the trade, it feels like the Warriors got so hell bent on only focusing on Giannis that they ended up missing out on everything else. It'd be like, the only person I'm going to ask out to the fucking prom is the prom queen. That's it. I don't care about anybody else. And then ending up with no options at all. This, even for the Hawks are building around Jalen Johnson, a wing of a fairly similar build as JK. In fact, they've got a lot of wings there. Dyson Daniels is pretty good for them. Zachary Richeche, their former number one pick, plays there. This screams like kind of at the end of the night, neither had a prom date, and they're like, fuck it, you want to go? It's like, here we are. So it is what it is. I don't like that he's not going to be available. I don't like that they got so hell-bent on focusing on Giannis that they ended up costing themselves, I think, an opportunity at AD, an opportunity at Vucevic, an opportunity at Zubac, and an opportunity at Jaren Jackson Jr. So hard thing to stomach.
Yeah, you're telling me. I mean, I think the reports are, they have come out that said that basically the Warriors passed on conversations with Memphis over Jaren Jackson Jr. specifically because they were holding out for Giannis. So, I hold some blame towards Shams and towards Milwaukee in general for sort of dangling that carrot in front of the NBA, but also fucking do your job, front office. Have contingency plans in place. That's what a good front office does. It's all, yeah. I mean, when you talked about the last time he played 65 games was his sophomore year in 2016, fuck, right? That's well before the Potts situation came to light, right? So yes, he's also just physically injury prone, like anybody over 7 foot would be who is playing in a sort of spaced out system. So it's concerning. I read this SF Gate article, which was a real tantalizing headline, right? And it was like, we talked to a San Francisco doctor who said that this is why he's excited about the potential for the Warriors to figure out something that other teams couldn't. And the answer was basically like, oh yeah, well, they have Celebrini. So he's pretty good. Yep. It's like, what? What are we talking? What do you mean? You don't even know? Nobody has any idea how to actually solve this problem. If you can't run because you're winded and feeling dizzy the whole time, I don't think you can really play ball. So I'm very concerned. And it, to me, exactly is what you're saying. It doesn't feel like the intention was to bring Porzingis in here in order for him to be an impact player on this squad. Again, I believe in the value in theory, but even the way that Draymond's talking about his fit, he's throwing in the word "but" in the middle of a sentence to make it seem right. It's what are you talking about? You don't have the feeling that I'm used to of we're so excited to have this guy on the team. This is a $30 million expiring contract. Yeah. I think if you go on the Atlanta Hawks subreddit, you see everybody in there saying thank God we got rid of this dude. He was probably done. This was probably the end of at least this level contract, if not his career. And so oh, thank God we got something back for him, right? Jonathan Kuminga is an indication of the market interest for Kristaps Porziņģis. They couldn't get anything better than JK, who we all know that Steve Kerr didn't even want to play. So, both sides are saying this is a distressed asset that we would like to get off of. But in the case of Kuminga, there's some value because there's still the potential upside. Yeah, sure. Porzingis has been in the league a whole 10 years longer than Kuminga. And at this point, it's very clear can't really contribute at the level that teams want him to contribute at. So I actually have no idea what the plan is for a $30 million expiring contract. That seems like it's something that's just going to fall away, and it just was a way for us to move on from Kuminga. I actually think that it might have been better for us, even though the vibes would have been bad, to keep Kuminga through the offseason because I just don't see any upside to this.
Dude, I'm sure there was a follow-up question. So here, I'll rain some optimism. My new maybe I'll get into Harvard possibility. Maybe Rick Celebrini, the head trainer in Golden State, can figure out something with Porzingis that nobody else has been able to. And now this guy whose skill set, just like we outlined, fits in perfectly, is suddenly able to play. Maybe, or maybe that's what happens, and I hope so. But when I say I'm sure there is a follow-up, so at the end of the day, they're speeding towards the trade deadline. You have until 2 p.m. yesterday to get this thing done Eastern time. My guess is when Mike Dunleavy said to Lacob or whoever else he needs to report it to, hey, there's been an offer. They've offered us Porzingis. I'm sure there was a follow-up. What other offers were there? I'm sure they weren't like, okay, great, call it in. I'm sure that they desperately were right. Like, well, okay, I gotcha. But what else was there? And then the fact that there probably wasn't a response to that, which is why they took it. And it goes back to what I said up front. I was like, well, it's over. And they just said, this can't keep happening. Well, like, even if it's not great value, like, this just needs to come to a fucking close. But here's some of the, I don't know if it's, I've never worked a single day as a GM. And I acknowledge for Mike Dunleavy, the Lacob didn't just want Giannis. Lacob wanted Giannis so much that they've been holding on to assets for 10 years. And Milwaukee made it seem like, well, maybe all that thrift spending, maybe is finally going to fucking come through now. So I can understand if I'm Mike Dunleavy and my owner saying, go get this one dude, fuck everybody else. I can understand how you'd get pot committed, so to speak. But at what point do you need to realize that Milwaukee's playing you, that nothing's happening? Because that's what it seems like it happened with Jaren Jackson Jr. What they're reporting is that the Warriors were negotiating with Utah, then pulled out and focused all of their energy on Milwaukee. And while they were doing that, I'm sorry, we're discussing with Memphis about Jaren Jackson.
Right, Memphis, yeah.
Then focused on Milwaukee. And then while they were focused on Milwaukee, Utah came out of left field and got the deal done with Memphis because we were no longer paying attention to them. I don't have any experience as a GM, but I'd like to think a very experienced one would know when was the moment to be like, okay, I don't believe you anymore, Milwaukee. Fuck you. Like, this isn't going anywhere, and we can beat the Jazz's offer. So hold on for a second. Let me look at a broader net of players, which leads to our final segment. All right. I'll call it Would You Rather. These are players who were in fact traded while the Warriors were enamored, I would imagine, with Antetokounmpo. These deals went on behind their back. And so I'm interested in, would you have preferred the Warriors make these deals than bringing in Kristaps? Let's start here. Anthony Davis, your boy. Anthony Davis got traded, Maxime. He finds himself on the Washington Wizards. He was traded out essentially for 2 firsts and matching salary. He was making about $58 million. So the functional equivalent, if the Warriors wanted to do that, would have been Jimmy, Pods, and 2 firsts. Would you have preferred that deal to Porziņģis?
Yes.
Um,
What I was just looking up is, when does Anthony Davis's contract expire?
He's got one more year, and then he wants supposedly he wants an extension.
Yeah.
And what Clutch has been saying is that whatever team picks him up has to also commit to an extension, but ultimately that did not happen. But it's a good question. And I'm spoiling the ending here. Of the trades I'm going to throw out here, I think this is the only one I am not positive I wanted. He's too hurt. I'm not sure that the thing that's making me feel really vulnerable about this is the practical reality of what this means for Steph. Like, if this is who they're going to surround him with, and Porziņģis out here and you can't any fucking help, that's hard. Anthony Davis has a very similar injury history to Porziņģis. And so I'm not sure, like, if we brought him in and it cost us 2 first rounders, I'd be happier. I guess I should be happier because I can see what he can do on the floor more than Porziņģis, but I'd also have pause. I wouldn't say yes immediately to this one. Here's another trade. Nikolai Vucevic, the sharpshooting big man, has moved from Chicago. He went to Boston. Boston traded Anthony Simons and a 2nd rounder. Simons has a very similar contract to JK. So this trade would have been Jonathan Kuminga and a 2nd round pick for Vucevic instead of Porziņģis. I do this in a heartbeat. There's no question at all. Absolutely, I do this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we just traded Trayce Jackson-Davis for a 2nd round pick. He was a 2nd round pick, so clearly we don't value that shit at all, right? Like, so yes, of course, you're just talking about basically a swap to get us a player that it can play right now.
Why the fuck didn't they do it? All right, here's another one.
Jesus.
Ivan Zubac, a player who has just murdered us, former Clipper, now finds himself on the Pacers. Pacers traded Mathurin, a player who is very similar to Jonathan Kuminga. Showed out a little bit more in the finals, but athletic marvel, similar build. And to be fair, Mathurin wants a new contract, so you're going to have to pay him a little bit more. But they traded out Mathurin and 2 firsts. So here, the trade would be Jonathan Kuminga, 2 firsts, another trade. I do in a heartbeat, no question at all. Which leads to the last one, the one we've already talked about, Jaren Jackson Jr., 3 firsts and a salary match. So that would have been Kuminga, Moses, and 3 first rounders. They would have brought back Jaren Jackson Jr., who is, by the way, 26 years old and a former Defensive Player of the Year. So it wouldn't have been just a stopgap. We're talking about a guy who you could probably build around even after Steph left. And so would I prefer that over the corpse of Kristaps Porziņģis? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously you want Giannis over Jaren Jackson. But like, look, there were Pat Riley and Tim Connolly both stayed in the Giannis sweepstakes longer than Mike Dunleavy Jr., right? So you can't just entirely blame this on idiocy. There are some very, very talented GMs in this organization that had got more duped than the Warriors by this guy. But overall, yeah, I think we should have pulled out much earlier from this pipe dream and instead grabbed a much more obvious, like everybody knew that Jaren Jackson Jr. could move. And that wasn't like somebody reporting about somebody's feelings while the player was saying, I want to be with this franchise forever. It was time that they moved on from Jaren Jackson Jr. It's just what a huge fucking swing and a miss there. Or not even a swing. What a huge miss. Where were you? You weren't even the fucking dugout. Like, you weren't even close to the baseball stadium. It's such a disappointment.
Will you root for Kuminga?
I'm pretty mad at him. But I'm pretty mad in general right now. So, right now I'm saying no. Like, he's just still such a kid, right? That I want kids to do well in life,
No, you're a good person. That's what I'm asking. If it doesn't cost the Warriors anything, all it does is cost you the press of a button. You've got another magic button pressing. A magic button appears on your desk, you press it, and he is now going to experience professional success at no cost to you. None. Doesn't impact the Warriors in any way. Do you press the button?
No, I don't, because it does. It does impact the Warriors in a certain way, right? What it says is that like Kerr was wrong. That if he had been more creative and figured out ways to fit him in 15 minutes a night, maybe when Steph Curry was sitting, then like we could have been the two timelines team that was prophesized. So like no, right? It's just I think if you'd gone like Atlanta Hawks are. They don't threaten me, right? They're in the Eastern Conference. We've never really had any beef with them, in any time where we were relevant. So like, I actually kind of like the Hawks as just a fan of the NBA. So I wouldn't be disappointed if they did well, with Kuminga helping them out. But like, no, for what it says about what this team could have been, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Not only would I not press it, I'd take that button, put it in concrete, and put it at the bottom of the motherfucking Pacific Ocean so nobody could press it. Fuck that. I would destroy the button a million goddamn ways. If there was a button I could press to guarantee that he had the lack of professional success, I would smash that button to the ground as well, dude. Like I'm a bitter, terrible person. I've always been a hater. Nothing has shifted with this, and I'm currently hating and bitter and pissy about this entire scenario. It is what it is. The final question, and with the caveat of we're allowed to be dramatic for a little bit, the swelling will go down and optimism will return. But do you view this as officially the end? Does this close the book on Steph Curry's title window?
Yeah, that's where I am right now. That's what I've been texting with the homies that are texting me about this. It's just that it doesn't feel like there's a way out anymore. This was sort of, to me, the last moment.
Yeah, it feels sad. I'm still maybe this offseason, maybe there's some incredible trade, maybe we like sneak into the lottery and get the one pick, we get the Cooper Flag treatment or something like that. But if I'm betting, not hoping, I'd probably bet that we might be on the other side of the title window here. All right. Well, on that super depressing note, please remember, you guys, you want to reach out to us, get us an email. Tell us we're doing a good job, a bad job, we're being ridiculous. We should be far more optimistic. Why? There's reasons to be happy about the Porziņģis trade. You can send that email to
Huddle@warriorshuddle.com.
Yeah, we're also on social media. We're on YouTube. We are still on Patreon. We are everywhere. If you guys would like to support us, we will gladly take that support. With that in mind, go Warriors. Hopefully, see you real soon.